upon you your excellency, and communicate the joy and hail the revival of the chief magistrate of this great nation to our remote and humble village. Be assured we duly appreciate the motives in which you have prompted you to repetition of the labors that we've already seen you perform in the north, and now that we will see you perform in the south. Permit us to congratulate you for the general tranquility and prosperity which we have prevailed and on the acquisition of territory made under your enlightened administration. We assure you that we contemplate the feelings of a national pride and the happy result of policy founded in principle, and in which its sole object is to exalt our great country. If, sir, at this time of convenience will permit, we should give you some feeble testimony of our respect and affection, and to have the honor of you joining us for dinner this evening.
Thank you,
Well,
Colonel.
yes, sir.
Thank
yes,
you,
sir.
Colonel. Is it Leroy or is it Leroy?
Leroy.
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 Well, there used to be a famous editor here that was addressed under the name of Leroy.
No, so
I'm gonna call you
that would
Leroy.
be a distant cousin.
But I want to introduce my trusted writers. I have Cecil Guinevere and I have Lieutenant Monroe, who have accompanied me all the way from Chattanooga.
Well, we welcome you to our community here, and we are glad that you have come to join us.
We travel through Chattanooga. We travel through Scottsboro. We're here now. I came to look at this great state and the other part of the country. I wanted to look at the fortifications. You can't ever tell when there might be a war come in, so I want to see the present fortifications and the future fortifications to protect this great state. And I am here to visit the world, visit the United States on my short stay. I'm riding through, I'm looking at our country, I'm looking at the manufacturing, I'm looking at the agriculture, I'm looking at the people, I'm looking at what makes us great. And I want you to know that it is good. I also would like to say that I wish I could stay long. I wish I could stay longer. But now I must retire to the Green Bottle Inn to get refreshed because we've been riding all day, and we shall be back with the dinner that you have proposed, and will enjoy the revelry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Your Excellency, would you please, sir, stick around for a few minutes for a few pictures, please, sir?
I will.
Yes, sir. Thank you
I
very
must
much.
leave, but I must leave soon after the dinner. I must go back to Nashville and see my good friend General Jackson, and I have to go back to the United States Congress and the Senate because we have a bill on the floor about the acquisition of Florida from Spain, and I must be in my office to do that job. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here. All right, the president will be available if you'd like to speak to him and let him speak to you and talk about his trip so far, and especially the great things he's doing up north and he's going to do here in the south for our great nation. You feel free to just come up and have a picture with him and mingle and talk with him. Just a few minutes.
Hunt, I will send you a book. Welcome to Huntsville.
Yeah, you can go. Don't worry about it. Oh, it's fine.
Basically an early form of ring toss, where you just throw the rings onto it. It's like an early ring toss. You're supposed to get the rings on.
Was there a point system or?
Each ringer was a point.
1 point.
Or you can do it whichever way you wanted to. Some did 1 point, some did 5.
Gotcha. And how many rings do you normally get each person?
It depended on whoever was playing the game. You could do 3 rings, you could do 3. It just was whoever
Right.
was making up the game.
Okay, this ring thing here.
This one?
Yes, ma'am. Could
This
you
is
explain?
basically a hook that you would just use this to keep it going.
Oh, okay. So what was the game for that? Was it racing or
It could be used for racing, and some people use it just for exercise.
exercise?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you have to run and keep it going. And it's also hand-eye coordination.
Gotcha. Okay. And
The game of racing. And this is also used to teach
Oh, yeah.
children. And you certainly can. What you would do is make an X, and you use the X to throw somebody. And then they would use their sticks to catch it.
right, gotcha.
I like doing
Is there a point
And there was no point system for it. It was just basically
just to play?
just play, just hand-eye coordination.
Right, gotcha.
You most certainly can, sir.
Alright, well, that's
This
good.
is called the Game of Graces.
The game of graces.
Game of Graces.
All right, then. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
We'll go a little slower then. Not like that. A little slower for us. We'll try not to go too fast for those who are learning. How about that? How about that? How about that? How about that? How about that?
basically, you spin. This stuff is longer staple lengths. You're spinning. See how this is spinning like a top in the air? And I pull with my hands the same way. And I keep going until it almost gets down to the floor. And then I can stop it. And since I'm starting this, what I'm going to do is take it off here, wrap it around down at the bottom, and then I can start it like this. Just keep going. This is how they made yarn 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. And people today still do this. This is how you learn before you do this. This is much slower. It's much, you don't have to move your hands as quickly. You don't have to worry about doing two things at once. You just focus on your hands, how your hands move.
Is it true that they want children to be able to learn because their hands were small enough?
Well, part of it was your hands are small, but also, you know, the idea back then was if you could walk, you could work. So children were an integral part of the household. They helped make the cottage products that the family was selling to make extra cash. So you learned these things when you were little to teach you how to make money for your family. A girl your age would be expected to know how to knit her own socks. She'd be expected to know how to sew on buttons, mend her own clothes. She'd be working on making her own dresses. Even boys had to learn how to mend and sew on buttons. Everybody learned how to do a lot of different things at home because they had to. And this is just a tool. Plus the other thing you can do is when you get good at this, you can take it with you places. When you go to feed the chickens, you can take this with you and be spinning while you feed the chickens. You can take it, you know, you can be listening to something and spinning at the same time. You can be watching your siblings and spinning at the same time. And so that's one of the reasons why little kids would take these out with them. And these, they still got used through most of the 19th century in Scotland, especially by children. But yeah, it's actually pretty easy to do once you get it because it spins like a top. The biggest thing is you don't ever want to let it start spinning the opposite way because then it'll untwist your yarn. And that's a problem. The same thing with the spinning wheel. You don't want the wheel to suddenly start going the opposite way, which if you don't move your foot at the right time, it'll do.
How long have you been doing this?
I started on this drop spindle about 7 years ago. And then about 2.5 years after I started that, I started this. So I've been doing this for about 5 years. And so it took a while. It took me probably a good 4 to 6 months to get really good at the drop spindle. And then it took me another 4 to 6 months to get used to this when I switched. And even, you know, it's sort of like, I don't know if you've ever sewn with a sewing machine.
I'm not very good at that. If I have to.
But, you know, it's sort of like, you know, how when you drive a car, every car is a little bit different to drive.
Right.
Well, every spinning wheel is a little bit different to use. They all have a different feel to them, and so you have to get used to yours. This is mine. This is my personal spinning. But we have 2 others.
So do you make the actual garments then? And sell them,
I have. Most of the stuff that I've made has either been for me personally or for, I was at a different museum before here, and I would work on things for that museum. But I have knitted. I have knitted a lot, mostly for personal use, and for them, a lot of it would be personal. They wouldn't necessarily be selling the things that they made.
Right.
But yeah, I mostly do it just because I like it, just because it's fun. But back then, it was kind of a necessity. The museum I used to be at, we did it was a farm, so we actually had sheep. We would do a sheep week challenge, which was sheep to garment in a week.
What museum was that?
The Home Place Living History Museum in it's near Dover, Tennessee.
Okay.
And so that's where I was when we did Sheep Week, and that was insane because we would shear the sheep on Saturday, and by the next Saturday, the end of the day, we had to have something done. So the whole week, it's just a nonstop washing and carding and spinning because before you even start, where did I put my cards? Yeah, my cards. Okay, before you can even use the wool, first of all, sheep don't take baths. So you've got to wash the wool once you get it off. And it's got sticks in it, burrs in it, all kinds of stuff in it. You gotta get it out. You gotta get it clean because it's also dirty. Also, you know, sheep don't use shampoo, so their hair is really oily. You have to get a lot of the oils out, and then you can card it. And by carding it, what you're doing is you're essentially brushing it. You want all the fibers to be facing the same way. And these are cards, and you just kind of pull it through, and you want to get all the little knots and fuzzies and stuff out before you can use it. And then once it's all sort of carded, you can pull it off, and you can pull from this to spin. Now this wool is a little bit old. It's not the greatest wool, but it's great to use to show how carding works.
You want to feel the wool?
Feel it? So
weird. Well, I'm touching. Come here, Hayden. Come check it out.
So yeah, it's really fluffy. Their hair is really, really curly, and it's really poofy. And the thing about it is how it works, how you're even able to spin it in the first place. Is if you looked at that wool under a microscope, just like human hair, if you were to look at it under a microscope, you would see that each little hair is covered in what looks like little tiny fish scales. And so what happens when you spin is the fish scales lock together on the different strands, and that's what holds it together. So when I have field trip groups that come through, I always make sure to tell them, with yarn, there's no unspinning it and respinning it. Once it's spun, it's stuck. So if you make a mistake, the mistake is there. There's no fixing it. So that's why it takes so long to learn. Because the first yarn you knit, it's got big fuzzy bits, thick spots, thin spots. You're breaking it all the time, trying to get it to work. And it just takes a lot of practice. And that's another reason why they started it so young, because to be able to use it, you needed to develop your skill. And even I still have times where like I'm just like, my spinning brain's just not on today. Yeah. I can't get my fingers to work right. It's just a practice thing. It really is. And they did it so much. But even, I know ladies who've been doing it 15 and 30 years. And they are wonderful at it. But
well, thank you for taking the time to show us today.
Absolutely.
My son will
today, I'm going to show you how we make yarn back in 1819. So how it works is I have a foot treadle down here that goes up and down that moves my wheel around. My wheel spins this smaller wheel since it's much larger, and this one is smaller, this one spins at a faster rate. That's attached to my flyer, which is this piece right here with the hooks. The flyer's job is to twist the wool and to put it here on my bobbin. And then what I have to do is keep the treadle moving with my foot and keep my hands moving to make sure my yarn is even and the right thickness. So as I spin it, I have to be constantly pulling with my hands at a steady rate and pushing with my foot at a steady rate, making sure my yarn gets twisted enough. Once it's twisted, you can't untwist it. If you make a mistake, it's stuck. So you have to be very careful. You want your yarn to be even, so you have to pull on to the wool evenly. It's kind of a pinching and smoothing motion with one hand, and the other hand just sort of holds the wool and keeps it steady. And that's how it goes. Now, I spin it once to make a one-ply yarn, but one-ply yarn isn't very stable. What happens is it wants to curl up on itself. So I actually have to spin it all twice. And when I spin it twice, I'll get a yarn that's more like this. Something that I can use, something that doesn't want to knot up on itself. So, I have to actually fill up 2 bobbins and spin them together the opposite way to get a yarn that I can actually use. Alright, that's my 2-minute spiel.
Yes.
Put everything away.
Absolutely, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Walker Allen came with his family here to Huntsville in 1813. He built this building, which was the biggest one in Huntsville at the time here. And there were several cabinet shops in the early 1800s here, because thousands of people were moving to northern Alabama. Why were people moving to northern Alabama? They came to grow something. What did they come to grow? Yeah, cotton. It was king. It was white gold. You could make a fortune growing cotton here in northern Alabama. So we went from one person in 1805, who was who? John Hunt, right? John Hunt, our first settler in 1805. By 1818, we were up to about 19,000 people here in what is now Madison County. We became Madison County in 1808 here. We became Huntsville in 1811. Before we were Huntsville, what were we? Anybody know? Before Huntsville? Y'all know. Y'all see it all the time. You all see it. For 2 years we were called what? Twickenham. We were called Twickenham from 1809 to 1811. And that was because Leroy Pope wanted it that way. Leroy Pope said, if you want my land to make this the county seat here, you must call this Twickenham. But nobody liked Twickenham because of the name of the place in England. Nobody liked England because we just fought the Revolutionary War against him. We were just getting ready to fight the War of 1812 against him. So in 1811, our territorial legislature made us Huntsville back then. So thousands of people moving to northern Alabama back then, and they cleared the land so they could grow cotton, and they built their homes, and they built their barns, and when they got done, they came to see the cabinet maker. And the cabinet maker would provide them furniture for their homes, their beds, and their bureaus, and their tables, and chairs, whatever they needed for the home, the cabinet maker would make it. And so that's what Walker Allen did. And he did it until he passed away just 5 years later in 1818. They sold off all of his tools. And so in 1819, when they were looking for a site to hold the Constitution Convention, this building was just sitting empty. And so that's why this became Constitution Hall here. And in December of 1819, we became what number state? Who knows? Who knows? Everybody knows. 22. We're 22. Yeah, we're 22. We became the 22nd state on December 14th of 1890 or 1819 here, and we wrote our Constitution here in this building from July 5th to August 2nd. Here, we wrote our Constitution here. 44 delegates. Now, we're going to demonstrate some of the tools here that were used by Walker Allen back here at this time here. And what Drake is using right here, this is called a sash saw, also called a spring pole saw. You can see he's using his leg saw. Much nicer than using the farm saw here. Look at the spring pole here, which is normally replaced about every year. But I've been here 6 years and we've never replaced it, so I don't know. It doesn't need to replace it. It now has that long spring. It works good. It works good. Yeah. It's awesome. This particular device right here is called a spring pole lathe right here. Works the same way here. You've got the lathe there. Look up to the lathe. The lathe down here.
Here's your tool. Is that what you want?
Yeah. Go ahead. You want to do it? Go ahead. And so it works the same process. Lathes go all the way back to the time of Christ, all right? And this is how they carve out lamps and tables and chairs here. It works fairly well. It does not work nearly as well as our it can be done again by one person using just light bulbs. When Mr. Walker was making a nice piece of furniture there, how did he make the wood nice and smooth? How did he do that? How did he make it nice and smooth?
Sandpaper.
I don't know what sandpaper is, all right? It hasn't been invented yet. I don't know what it is, all right? Back in the early 1800s, we used planes. A good cabinet maker might have 200 different planes in his shop there to carve out wood and to make wood nice and smooth there. And, yeah, these are...
That's a little boat plane.
It is. You're exactly right. Yep. And
then this is a big old jointer plane, it's called.
Yep.
To make a nice flat 90-degree edge.
And normally these long planes here, forget the terminology. Do you remember the terminology for this one?
That's a jointer plane.
Is it? I think there's another term too for it. Well, anyway, this is used normally
Jack plane?
to smooth the wood that you would have on your floor here. It's got a straight blade on the bottom of it here, and it works very nicely here. Just run it across, and it takes off a layer of the wood and makes it nice and smooth. Works better than sandpaper does. There's a nice good blade on it there. Now, if I was making a nice molding for a piece of furniture, or maybe a chair molding or a ceiling molding, we would design the molding first. Something like this here, which has got a lot of curves in it here. And then we'd have to design and make the plane to be able to make the molding. And normally we would have, I've misplaced, I haven't worked in a couple of weeks, so we've got the stuff misplaced. But anyway, you would design a particular piece of plane here that would fit what you were trying to make. This one had to have a curved blade on it to get the curve in that you would need on the molding right there. And you would get the blades again from the blacksmith. Now, the one problem with that is that I don't have 4 hands. Only got 2 hands. So holding the wood down was always a problem there, and they would use what's called hold fast here, which are just pieces of iron here that are stuck through the bench. And you take it and you take your mallet and give it a tap there. And young man, come under the rope here, all right? Come on under here. Can you move my wood here? Move my wood right here. Oh, try harder. You can do it harder. Don't pull my bench. You pull my bench over, I'm not going to be happy, all right? Anyway, you can't move it at all. And now I have 2 free hands that I can plane the wood here, all right? So that's how the hold fast works. And they work very nicely. People are quite ingenious back in the early 1800s.
This is the way the Romans actually worked, is they'd have, hold fast, and they put the timber down, they take their planes, and the Romans made some amazing wood.
Oh yeah. Now this particular device right here, now I've lost my drawing knife again. Here's the spoke shade.
I hung it up, that's right there behind you on the wall, on the pegs.
This is called a shaving horse here. Every good car. Where are they? There's a drawing knife to it. The spoke shade is small. It's a small one. Small one. Somebody's taking all my tools here. Anyway, we would take a piece of wood here. And let's see if I can take a piece of wood. And somewhere around here. Anyway, this is called a shaving horse. Every carpenter, every cabinet maker would have one of these. You ride it just like a horse. It's got a head. You clamp the wood in, down on the stirrups here. And you take what's called a draw knife here. And you draw it towards you. And you shave the wood using the draw knife here. And it works very nicely. This is how they would shave wood for shingles for your house, because all your shingles have to be tapered, and so this is how they would taper the shingles for your house using a draw knife. Now the other tool they would use on this is a spoke shade, which looks very similar to this, except it's much smaller. It's probably about the 1/3 size of this.
Is this right here?
That's it right there. That's a spoke shade, yeah. And it was invented by the wheelwright. What's a wheelwright? Who knows what a wheelwright is?
That's really sharp.
Yeah. Who knows what a wheelwright is? Anybody?
Somebody that makes wheels.
He does. He builds the wagon wheels that you would have on your covered wagon, all right? They look much like the wheel that we have here, all right? But the spokes all have to be hand carved, all right? And that's why the wheelwright is the one who invented the spoke shave, all right? And he used it for much finer work than you would use with a draw knife there. For instance, out there, all those Windsor chairs out there, all those got the spindles going vertically up. All those spindles have to be hand carved. They can't be done in a lathe. They're too spindly, so they would all break. So they all have to be hand carved using a spoke shave back there. Now this particular device right here is called a great wheel lathe or a big wheel lathe, whatever you want to call it. Now back in around would always have a young apprentice working for him. He would be a young man that was about 13 or 14 who would come and live with him and stay about 6 years. And he would learn how to be a cabinet maker. That would be his trade for the rest of his life then. He wouldn't get paid a nickel, all right, but he would get his room and board, and he would work long hours. And one of the jobs he would have is normally spinning this wheel here on a big wheel lathe here. He would be making stickering. Yep. He would be making, he would be making legs for the tables and chairs, then the apprentice would be spinning the wheel then. Who wants to be my apprentice, or be Drake's apprentice? Go ahead and do that. Yeah, that's right, I got an apprentice. Where's my apprentice? I need someone who's 14. Anybody 14?
He's almost 8.
Almost 8. Well, that's good enough. Come on in, young man. If you don't want to do it, don't want to do it. Who wants to be my apprentice? Anybody? No, that's right. That's right. I'll be. If you want to do it, you don't have to.
He said he doesn't know what to do.
I'll show you, all right?
Come on, he'll show
Come on
you.
in here. I'll show you how to do it. See this big wheel right here? See this handle? We're going to spin that handle here, and it's going to turn that lathe right here. Well, we're going to show you in this move as soon as he gets locked up here. Now this thing right here has got a diameter. You know what a diameter is? You know what a diameter is? Diameter is the distance from here to here. That distance here to here is about 9 times bigger than this distance right here. So every time that we turn this big wheel, this little wheel down here, in my lathe is going to go around 9 times, all right? So we want it to spin really fast, and Drake's going to do it here. Go ahead, you got it. And he's going to carve out.
Well, you're going to spin it. No, you're going to spin it.
You're going to spin the wheel, and Drake's going to carve here, all right? We're going to go this way here. We're going to spin just like this, all right? We're going to get it going, and we're going to spin it. Can you do it? We're going to go real fast, all right? Can you go real fast? You got to get it going here.
Go fast,
Faster,
Gideon.
faster, faster, faster. It's hard. Let me do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. Good try.
You
all
did a
right?
good
Are you
job,
ready?
Gideon. You got
Great
it.
job.
All
Way to go.
There we go. Good job. All right, here we go.
You got it started. Good. See?
My big wheel is slipping here.
You gotta get out.
Remember, usually it's 14-year-old that does that.
It's as fast as
6
it's
years,
going
you
here.
come
It's
back and
more
it's
and more.
really fast, okay?
Maybe the rope was not too. All right, anyway. So that's how big wheel lathe works right there. And again, these are some of the tools that you would find here, all in Walker Allen's shop here. And you find different types of saws. The broad axes there for trimming wood when you're building a wooden house. And augers over there, and reamers over there. This is called somebody took my fro, I don't know where my fro went.
The froze out in the...
Anyway, moved the fro out there. Fro is used to split wood to make shingles and other things. And I think that's about all I got.
Yeah, all right, yep,
You got
we're
it.
gonna move on, but that's a lot about what would have gone in here before.
Would you lock that down?
All right,
As
so
a second lieutenant.
exactly, yeah. So welcome here. I work for General John Coffey. That's General John Coffey's office right there on the second floor of the Clement Comer Clay's law office right there. And in fact, John Coffey's son marries the daughter of our postmaster right there. So they were all very much related and very close to Annie Jackson. And in fact, John Coffey marries one of the nieces to Rachel Donaldson, who was married to Annie Jackson there. So anyway, I work as a surveyor for John Coffey here. Now, John Coffey and Annie Jackson were instrumental in winning the War of 1812. They defeated the Creek Indians during the Creek Indian War at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend in 1814, and then defeated the British at the Battle of New Orleans in January of 1815, which ended the War of 1812. Now, after the Battle of Horseshoe Bend against the Creek Indians, Annie Jackson had all the Indian tribes in the area sign a new treaty called the Treaty of Fort Jackson. Back in then, the Alabama Territory kind of looked like this here. There were 4 major Indian tribes here. The Choctaw Indians were down here. the Chickasaw were up in this area, the Cherokee were over in this area, and the Creek Indians kind of down in this area. And central Alabama was kind of a common hunting ground for all four of those Indian tribes. Now, one of the provisions, the main provision of the Treaty of Fort Jackson in 1814 was that all this land in central Alabama here had to be turned over by the Indians to the federal government, along with a lot of land in southern Georgia also. It was a huge amount of land. 23 million acres of land now came under the possession of the federal government. And people wanted to move there. They wanted to build farms and towns and cities. But before they could do that, before the federal government would sell them the land, all that land had to be surveyed. What's a surveyor do? What's he do? What's a surveyor do? Who knows? Who knows? You know, what's a surveyor do?
Measures land.
He does. He makes maps and he measures boundaries on land there. That's what a surveyor does. So that when you buy a piece of land there, you get a piece of paper called a deed. And that deed there will tell you where your land is. And it will direct you out into the wilderness here, because there's no roads, there's no towns, all it is wilderness. And out in the wilderness, you'll find a rock. And on that rock there, it'll have some kind of number on there, and you look on your deed and you say, yeah, this is my land. That's how you knew where your land was. You bought land in what was called sections, or a half section, or a quarter section of land. A section was 1 mile across, or 1 mile down and 1 mile across, 1 square mile. 643 acres was a section, and that's how you bought it. You bought a quarter section, half section, or a full section of land. If you were really rich, you might buy multiple sections. Our second governor, Thomas Bibb, he had about 3 sections of land out near Mooresville out there, about 1,500 acres out there. So, depends how much money is, that's how much land you can buy and grow cotton back then. Now, as General Coffee would do is he would send survey teams out into the wilderness. And they would stay out there for months at a time. And they would take with them some dried fruits and dried vegetables. And they would take some coffee and tea and toothbrush and candles. But basically they were on an extended hunting trip. And they took their weapons and they took their fishing gear so that they could feed themselves during this survey trip out into the wilderness out there. So I'm going to set up a typical survey team here. So I'm going to need a little bit of help here. Now, the first person, well, let me talk a little bit more here. A section is always oriented north-south and east-west. That's how it's oriented. And the way they do that, measure that north-south and east-west, is using a what?
Compass.
A compass, that's right. Here on my transit here, there is a compass right here. And my compass always points what direction? North. It always points north. That's why it's magnetic. It points to the north. Yeah, it always points that way. So that's how well we know what direction that we're going. Now, the first 2 people on my surveying team are called blazers. They take the axes out there and they cut down everything bigger than 2 inches so that my surveyor here, as he's looking through my telescope on the transit here, has got a nice clear line of sight so that he can view what's going on and get the right line of sight. So we're going east-west in this particular case here. So I send out my blazers, they cut down. The next person on my team is called my pole man. Who wants to be a pole man? Anybody want to be a pole man? Who wants to be my pole? You want to be a pole man, young man? Oh, no. Who wants to be a pole? You want to do it? Come over here, young man. There we go. I want you to go take this pole down to the second bench on the left down there, all right? Just tell those people to move, all right? There we go. Now, the next person on my team is called the surveyor. Who wants to be a surveyor? Who wants to be a surveyor? Somebody be a surveyor. Somebody raise their hand. Come to me. You look like a surveyor. Come to me. All right,
Come to me.
Now this is my telescope here. My compass is not quite working. It's broken. I got to fix it here. But there's a telescope, and you will look through the telescope, and you will look down and see the pole man down there, all right, with a little light. And you will line him up so that he is exactly on my compass going east-west here, all right? And if he's not lined up quite right, you tell him, move right.
Move right.
There we go. All right, everybody's good. You tell him good.
Good. it.
All right, now we got a direction here, all right? We're going east-west. The next two people are my chain men. I need 2 chain men who want to be my chain man. There's my chain man. Anybody else? I need another chain man. Come on, volunteer. Okay. You're a volunteer. There we go. All right, so I need 2 chain men. Now, I have a hind chain man and a front chain man. You are my hind chain man, all right? You would take that. Plus, these are called tally pins. We always carry 11 tally pins. I'm only going to give you 1 here, all right? And you will take the tally pin and stick it through the gunner's chain right there. And stick it so it's right there underneath my transit right there, all right? Now, my gunner's chain here is always exactly 66 feet long. Not 65, not 67, always exactly 66 feet. I want you to take my chain here and take the rest of it here, and we're going to kind of string it out. Somebody want to help him string this out here? I've got another young man here. You want to help him string it out? All right, that's good. You can walk him down there with it. They wound the darn thing up here last time. You get it unwound there. Yeah, you can just kind of drop it, sometimes it falls. All right, you'll take the gunner's pin also, and you would normally carry 10 of these, but I'm just going to give you 1 here, all right? All right, you got it? And you can walk her all the way down to my pole man. And you want to stay right in line with my pole man there, all right? Stretch my chain right out there, all right? Stretch her right out. Walk. Because you got a pin. I don't want you falling on your pin. There we go. Stay right on line with him. Stay on line with him. No, not him. You stay, and you're on line. There we go. There we go. Close enough. There we go. Right there. All right. Now, my hind chain person here will take that pin, stick it in the ground, and you will say, stick.
Stick.
And you'll take your pin, stick it through the gunner's chain, and stick it into the ground, and you will say, stop. Say stop. We'll make it believe you. Say stop. Yeah, you.
Short one. Say stuck.
Stop. There we got it. All right. So you can come back now. Come on back, kids. So we have just measured 66 feet going east-west. Now I said a section is how long?
1 mile.
1 mile, exactly. 5,280 feet in a mile. We just measured 66 feet. How many more times do I have to measure to get my 1 mile?
79.
Who can do the math? Not quite. Is it 5,280? It's 5,280, isn't it? Yeah. 80 times is what we got to measure it. 80 times, all right? And that's how, and we get to our corner 80 times. Well, we're carrying 10 pins. So we measure 1/8 of a mile with 10 pins. And at the end, we say tally 1. And then we do it 7 more times to get our tally 8, which is our 80th measurement. And that's what a surveyor does. Yay! All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, go ahead.
All right, so this was Clement Colmer Clay's office building, and it was also the first post office. So he was a lawyer originally back in 1811, I believe, and so he would have his law office right here, and this is where he would run his law services out of. And then in here we have the post office, what would have been the post office. So you come on in here, and this is all the mail boxes and that kind of thing. So people would come, step up to this window and ask for the letter. And they would have to pay to get their letter. They wouldn't, the person sending it wouldn't pay for postage. So they would do as best as they could to limit how much paper they would use as well, because paper was also very expensive. So this is how they would write their letters. So they would write it like this, and then to the side. So when someone would read it, they'd use like a piece of paper or something to read it like that, and then they flip it around and then read it like that. And that's how they would save money on postage and that kind of thing. And so they would use like wax and that kind of thing to seal up their letters and that kind of thing, and then they would use a seal. A lot of them would have like their family name, so this is like a C for Colmer and that kind of thing. And then upstairs we have the surveyor's office, which was also owned by Clement Colmer Clay, but John Coffey worked up there, and he did his surveying work in Huntsville.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a long day today, don't you?
Okay, so this is Constitution Hall. This is where all 44 delegates met to write and sign the Constitution right here in this spot. So all of the chairs here represent each of the delegates, and sometimes on the back of the chairs, like right here, or like on the arms of the chairs, have each of the names of each of the delegates written here. And so if you also take like a look around like right here, this actually used to be a cabinet shop owned by Walker Allen, and after he died, the delegates and stuff, they took over this building because it was the largest building in Huntsville at the time, so this was the perfect spot for all of them to meet. Mm-hmm. And so inside there, they're doing a woodworking demonstration if you want to check that out and that kind of thing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Look at the door.
Back in 1800s, again, thousands of people were moving here. We had our first settler that came here was, you want to take over Pounding again?
No, go ahead.
I'm all right, I was just going to talk. I'm sorry? You can bring something hot? So, back in 1805, our first settler came to what is now would be Madison County here. It was, who was it? Who was our first settler? John Hunt, exactly. John Hunt came in 1805, brought his family here, and he built a house overlooking Big Spring Park, right on the bluff up there. He was a squatter, though. He didn't own the land, though, and it would come back and haunt him after that. But after that, thousands of people began moving here. Just 5 years later, we would have 5,000 people here. In 1808, we were designated Madison County by the territorial governor at the time there, and he set up a commission to set a site for where the county seat ought to be. Now, they had a big land sale in 1809 up in Nashville, and a man named Leroy Pope, he bought all this land in this area. He and his partner bought all this land here. And Leroy went to this commission and said, I will sell you 30 acres, and I'll give you another 30 acres if you will set this area right up here as the county seat for Madison County here. And the people thought, or the commission thought that was a really good deal, and so they took him up on it, and that's why we were called Hunt Springs at the time. Why Hunt Spring became the first county seat of Madison County. However, Leroy had another idea, he had another requirement. He said, if I give you this bargain here, I got one other thing, and that is you need to change the name from Hunt Spring to what? Anybody know? Twickenham, exactly, Twickenham. Now we don't know why he wanted to call it Twickenham. We don't know that. Twickenham is a place in England. Alexander Pope was from Twickenham, and we don't know if there's a relationship between Leroy or Alexander Pope, but he wanted to call it Twickenham. And so for 2 years, we were called Twickenham here, but nobody liked the name Twickenham. It was the name of the place in England. Nobody liked England. We just fought the Revolutionary War against England. We were getting ready to fight the War of 1812 against England. Nobody liked England. And so in 1811, the territorial legislature changed our name from Twickenham to Huntsville, that we've been ever since here. And now I forget where was I going? Oh, so population, we were up to, again, we were up to about 9,000 people in or about 5,000 people in 1809. And just 10 years later, we were up to about 9,000 people here in Madison County here. So thousands of people were moving here, and again, most of them came here to grow cotton here. That was the deal. And they came here and they bought land. And then they had to build their houses. And then they had to build their barns. And to do that, they needed what? Nails, exactly. They needed nails. And so they come to the blacksmith here, and a good apprentice here. And my apprentice would work for me for about 6 years to learn how to be a blacksmith. As a young boy, he would come at about the age of 14, and he worked for me for 6 years. And a good apprentice could make 1,000 nails a day that we would sell for an extraordinary amount of money to the people who needed nails. Because nails were expensive, and nails were valuable back then. So, if I wanted to move from Huntsville, say, to Texas, I'd like to take those nails with me, though. Because I just paid a lot of money for these nails here. Plus I get to Texas and I'd not be a blacksmith there. So I want to take my nails with me. So how do I get nails out of wood? How do we do that? How do we get nails out of wood? Pry them out. Use a hammer or something. That's a lot of work, isn't it, huh? That is. How do we get them out in 1819? Yeah, we just burned that house down, all right? Because back then, wood is basically free. We're trying to get rid of the wood so we can grow cotton. Those nails are expensive. Nails are valuable. So we burn the house down. No, we don't burn the Neil house down. We're not going to burn the Neil. This part we're talking log cabins and things of that nature out in the county here, all right? So we burn it down, wait for the ashes to cool, send all the kids in there, they pick up all the nails, and you could move them from Huntsville out to Texas or wherever else you're going to go. So nails back then for the blacksmith were a big money maker back then, all right? Big money maker. And let's see, what else did we talk about? What are you making? Making hooks. We're making hooks. Again, we use a lot of hooks back then. In the kitchen, my wife is cooking in the fireplace. And based on the size of the fire or whatever I'm cooking, I adjust the number of hooks so that my wife gets the meal cooked very nicely back then, all right? So hooks are a big deal back then. And what else do we? We make a lot of hinges for all the doors, a lot of door locks. Also, if you look at the shutter out there, you'll see a iron rod that comes down. That iron rod covers those shutters when it's closed. Because back then, in the around 1812, 1811 time frame, the Indians are a big threat. The Indians weren't real happy that we were here, all right? And so the Indians were a threat. And we had 4 major tribes: the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Cherokee, and the Creek Indians there. When we got to the War of 1812, some of the Creek Indians joined the British side. They thought that they took us out. They won, the British won. They took all the white settlers out, and they get all their hunting grounds back again. So the Creek Indians were a real threat back in about 1812 then, and so that's why our shutters there have got a bar across, which is locked from the inside. Cannot be opened in case there happens to be an Indian attack there. And you all know the story then about the Indian, see if I can remember it. The guy that was in charge of all the Indian affairs back then received a letter by a summons by the president. He said, "Come back to Washington. I need to talk to you." So the guy wrote him back a letter and he said, what? "I'll be there if what? The creek don't rise." That's right, the creek don't rise. But a lot of people think, well, that's just the water, all right? But in fact, he's actually talking about the Creek Indian tribe is what he's talking about. Now that's a legend, all right? We've never actually found the letter that said that, all right? But that's a legend, all right? But that's what it is, all right? Yeah. So nails are valuable back then, as are everything that the blacksmith does there. And what do you make of it?
A leaf.
A leaf. That we would put on some fancy decoration.
Sure.
You know, exactly, all right? If you walk down on Franklin Street out here, you'll see a lot of iron fencing along those houses. That's all original ironwork from about the Civil War time period. Before the Civil War, all that iron work was put in back then. And it is. It's all original work done by the blacksmith back then.
Blacksmith did a lot of architectural work, a lot of ornamental work, a lot of work on fences and gates and just really anything you can imagine, and as ornate and as delicate as you can imagine. The blacksmith was able to do with just equipment, just like you see in our little shop here. In a shop like this, you can do anything from a little delicate leaf or nail like we've been working on to parts for the printing presses or tools that the carpenter used to wagons, to plows, chains, anything you want to. With just the equipment you see in here.
So why am I called a blacksmith anyway? Why black? Why not greensmith? I like green. Why not greensmith? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Why blacksmith? Who knows?
I don't know. Why blacksmith?
Why? Who knows? Somebody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. It's because we work with black metal. Black metal. Iron and steel is black metal there, all right? That's what we work with. The word smith comes from the Old English word smite. Smite means to hit or to strike. So a blacksmith is one who bends and shapes iron and steel then. And if I work with tin, I'd be a what? Tinsmith. Tinsmith, exactly. If I work with silver, I'd be a what?
Silversmith.
And if I had gold, I'd be a what?
Goldsmith.
No, I'd be retired. I wouldn't be working at all. Yeah. That's my one joke, all right? That's all I got. That's pretty good. Yeah. Here we burn coke. We burn coke in our forge there. Our temperature we work with typically gets up to between about 2,000 and 2,500 degrees, which is much hotter than coke normally burns at, which is about 1,000 degrees. So how do we get the higher temperature from 1,000 up to 2,000? How do we get that temperature? How do we get it up there?
The blower. The blower.
You're exactly right. That's what we have back here. These are my bellows here. I pull the bellow, I pull the chain down, fills up with air, which is like a big balloon, and we let it go, and all the air gets pushed out, and it gets pushed into the bottom of my firebox there. The more air I push into my firebox, the hotter the fire gets. The hotter the fire gets, the easier it is to bend the metal then. So we want a nice hot fire when we're working there, all right? We got a good fire right now. It's burning. It's roaring right now. It's good. So we're operating about 2,500 degrees there right now, probably. How do we do it all? Well, you watch this young lady. She's about to show you how they pound the metal, and she can shape and make it whatever she wants to make. She'll make. She makes hooks and nails and candle holders. We make a lot of candle holders here, such as this. Because back in 1819, all our light came from what? Made from candles or oil lamps. Oil lamps we use, but oil lamps are dirty, so the kids had to clean the oil lamps every day, which was not fun. So candles were very common back then. And also the light from the fireplace we would have also at that time back then. So let me tell you about, I gotta fix my, what I do with my candle here. Oh, there it is. I'll tell you another story so that I can get this fixed. All right. All right, so anybody know what kind of candle holder this is here? So the candle goes right in here. So back in the early 1800s to about 1820 time frame here, most young girls started getting married when they were in their late teens or early 20s there. Are you in your late teens, early 20s, young lady? You're not, well, you got to start thinking about it, though. You got to start thinking about it here. Start thinking about getting married here. And if there was a young boy who was interested in this young lady, he would come to her house and he would call on her. And they would go out in the backyard or out in the front yard there and sit down and talk and get to know each other. Of course, whose decision was it whether or not that was a good match or not? Close, but not totally correct.
That's something.
That was the father's. That's my job, all right? That's my job to decide whether or not a boy is good enough for his daughter or not, all right? I'm sorry?
Blacksmith's job?
No, you're not. Or wherever I'm working, all right? Yeah, so it's the father's job to determine whether or not a boy is good enough for his daughter or not. And if he didn't think that young boy was good enough for his daughter, he would take this candle out and he would say to the young man there, he would say, you can stay till this candle here burns from here down to the top of the candle holder right here. But if he liked the young man, thought it'd be a good match, maybe it was really good economically for the family that would be a good match there, he would crank it up a little bit and he would say, you can stay till the candle burns from the top down to the top of the candle holder here. Give them some extra time to get to know each other. And then it would turn out to be a good match maybe there. This is what is called a courting candle here, a courting candle. So that was very common back in the 1800s here, for the father to have a courting candle for his daughter here. And of course the blacksmith also had another major job. He made these. What are these right here? Horseshoes, exactly. This comes from a Clydesdale. He pulls my beer wagon. What's the blacksmith called who makes horseshoes? Farrier, exactly. All right, he's called the farrier. That's right. He's a specialized blacksmith. as was the wheelwright. The wheelwright would make the wagon wheels for your wagons, all right, which had to have a steel band around them, and it took special tools and special skills to be able to fit that steel band around that wagon wheel there. And of course, we made all of the cooking utensils for the women. My wife's out there cooking my supper in the fireplace in the hearth. And there's a crane across the top, a transom, with a lot of hooks hanging down, where she hung the pots and pans in there. And all that metal work there all had to be made by the blacksmith, along with the knives, the forks, the cooking utensils also. Plus, of course, all of the tools the farmers would use, their shovels and axes and picks and plow blades, everything else that the farmers would need would be made by the blacksmith there. And Joel, what are you making? Hook. There's another hook. Do you have any hooks? These all the long one. The long one. Which one's the long one? Good hook. Which one? Did you make these? I don't know. Who wants to take a hook back with them? Typically, these are called J hooks. J hooks back then. Most houses were lined with wood, so you would put the point right here, pound it in there, and that's where they would hang bags of food, cooking utensils, other tools, clothing, book bags, whatever you would have be hung up with a J hook or a pick hook there. And so you would have a lot of them in your house back there. Anybody want to take a pick hook back with it? Do you have a parent? There you go. All right, there you go. Be careful on the point there. Don't let it stab yourself there, all right?
You gonna run?
I gotta run in a few minutes here. I have a few minutes.
That's
A couple more minutes. And then I'll be back. I gotta go work.
I'm Captain John Hunt, and the town is named after me. About 400 yards from here, next to the big spring, I built the first cabin in 1804 and brought in a bunch of settlers from Tennessee. And by the time the land went on public auction by 1809, there were almost 2,000 people living here. My three sons and I cleared all this downtown area I once owned, but I did not get it when it went on public auction in 1809 in Nashville. Leroy Pope managed to get control of my land, so I moved down the Indian Creek, what they call the branch that flows out of Big Spring. And I eventually ended up on my daughter's farm, where it's appropriately called John Hunt Park today. And I died there at age 72 in 1822 of consumption. But I was the first coroner here in Huntsville. One of my daughters, Sarah, married Stephen Neal, and that's her house right there in the corner. Pan around, there you go. The white row house with the detached kitchen. But she died, unfortunately, in 1818. Sheriff Neal later remarried. But I was the acknowledged town leader. I enlarged my cabin to become what was called a public house back then. And settlers poured into this area because of the rich land and because of the wonderful cool water that flows out of the Big Spring, the coolest in the eastern United States, in fact. Enough?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's fine.
Mr. Boardman was a very interesting character. He was an entrepreneur. Even though he was a lawyer, that was not really what we had him doing here in 1819. He was a publisher of the Alabama Republican. He also rented out the law offices over here to Mr. Skipworth Jones. And then during Mr. Skipworth Jones' lunch period, a couple days a week, we would have the library open to everybody. So I think I mentioned Mr. Boardman was the only person allowed in the Constitutional Convention who was not a delegate because of the freedom of the press, getting information. And he would publish once a week his newspaper. And during that month or so, he would have blurbs in the paper about what was happening at the Constitutional Convention. I tell people about how this was all printed. these are our letters that we would use on the printing press, and these cases are full of all the different sizes and fonts and italics and things like that. And you would pull what you needed and you put them in the cases the night before. And your lowercase letters would go here and your capital letters would go here in the uppercase. So if you ever wonder where that came from, that's where that came from. If we were including a picture in our newspaper, it would be carved on wood. And Mr. Boardman had his own proprietary ink he made out of linseed oil and soot, and I'll show you how to press it.
She's fixing to demonstrate.
It's our eating table, and I was just talking about our advertisement here, because not only would he publish just the paper, but he would also publish legal notices, he would publish advertisements, and things like that. And this is an advertisement, and we put our paper into the chase. And then platinum. Pull this back. And this is nice and heavy. And then you had a copy of your advertisement. And it would take about 3 days for his ink to dry. So you would place that on a drying rack, and in 3 days they'd have the newspaper. That's why we only publish once a week, the newspaper. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, tell us about the elephant. I came in on the last tail end of it.
Oh, the advertisement?
Yes.
Okay, well that was, I like to tell people that history is a bunch of stories. And sometimes as we learn more about history, our stories will change because we learn that things that we were always told by Grandma may not have actually been the case. And the story we're telling here is about the elephant. And anecdotally, we were always told that the elephant had come through town in the early 19th century. And so we're like, okay, as we're reopening the park, we want to know the full story here. So we went up to the Alabama room over at the library, where the wonderful librarians at the Madison County Public Library helped us go through so many books and documents and things. And we found out that yes, there were lots of elephant stories told between, Civil War period and early 19th century, but we didn't actually get our elephant here in Huntsville. Now, we got one around the Civil War time because there was a circus, and there was an accident where one of the elephants was killed in a fire or something. And so there was an elephant found underneath some of the roads when they were excavating over there. But we were able to find out that was a Civil War elephant, not an early 19th century elephant. But the story is really cool, and the story is really cool that we can tell that now that we know more, we go back and research, and we can change our story to be more accurate. And that's history. That's what we do.
Right. And about the elephant getting on trial?
Oh, that was a Tennessee thing. Apparently there was a woman who was killed in an accident with an elephant up in Tennessee, and the elephant was charged with murder, and the elephant was executed. And there are actual images of that in a Tennessee newspaper. So yes, they used a crane to hang the elephant by the neck until it had passed away.
Oh man.
That was a Tennessee thing. It wasn't a Huntsville thing. But yeah, but there were so many elephant stories that, like I was telling the lady here before, that a lot of the elephant stories kind of got all mushed together into variations of an elephant story, even though they weren't this elephant story. But the ladies, like I said, over at the Madison County Library, and there was one gentleman, I never should say his name, but we had a great 2 or 3 hours going through all of these microfiche and documents trying to verify our elephant. Now, there were elephants in the United States in the early 19th century, but they all stayed pretty much further up north. I think you've heard the nursery rhyme, Miss Mary Mac, all dressed in black with silver buttons. That was probably referring to the elephant that visited up in New England, and George Washington even documented seeing that elephant, but they never came this far south. So.